So welcome everybody to Quick Moments in Passionate Pursuits, The Unfolding, and I'm Beth Orr.
And I'm Bridget Corns.
So today, The Unfolding, we thought, oh my gosh, what a great topic to talk about in the very beginning, since that's exactly where we are. We have no idea the direction that this is going. And so there's something in that we're both seeing in our work and in what we're doing, that it takes a certain amount of emotional fortitude, if you will, to be able to stay a path that you have no idea where it's going. It brings up a lot of emotions.
Yeah, when you said that, I just had this image of kind of what we individually have had to trust and go through, like that process that we've allowed ourselves to surrender to, of being inside that dark cocoon. And there was, I mean, even before that, backing up before that, there's the desire and the willingness to step into that cocoon and surrender the image of ourselves that we held and knew before, knowing that that image is quite literally going to be destroyed in order to make space for the new.
Yeah, yeah, and I, as you were talking about that, I was thinking about, I was thinking about the image of something trying to get out of that cocoon and get into the light, because sometimes when you're in that, like for me, I was in that season for so long, I just wanted the light, but then sometimes it's like you want to crawl back in.
Mm.
You just want to crawl back into the cocoon, because it's like there's this real flow, this ebb and flow with these seasons, that I think once you're in this season of rapid growth and change, it's almost like you jump from one cocoon and out into the light, and another cocoon and out into the light. And it becomes an ongoing exercise of these more rapid seasons of rest and creation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is two things. Something I experienced very recently in allowing myself to go through that transformative process very quickly. And also, as you were saying, you desire to crawl out into the light. I just had to chuckle a little bit inside, because you literally are the light. You are
Mm,
the light. We have this deep burning desire to find this light. We think we're supposed to go find it somewhere outside of ourselves, and we almost can't. It's almost like, where is this? I thought I heard it was here. Like, everyone told me that it was there and that I could find it, and yet I'm not finding it and I don't see it and I'm not sure what's going on. And then you come to the realization that, oh, I am the source of light. Okay, got it. But yeah, that quick transition, at first it feels like these monumental catalysts are hitting you. And like, for me, literally, I was like, I'm going to die. This is going to kill me. I'm certain of it. This feels like death. And as you move through those cocoons and those phases and the cyclical nature of life, you start to realize that these catalysts are not quite as daunting and terrifying as they appeared. And then for myself, I've started to come to love these catalysts that present themselves. Ooh, this really hurts. Can I lean into where this hurts and draw it through myself and allow it to wash over me, wash through me, and then be released. And
Yeah.
then can I also do the same in balancing, sort of in a balancing act of feeling the exact opposite of that? If I was rejected, can I feel completely loved and accepted and allow
Mm.
that feeling to magnify and wash over me and wash through me and release that as well? And in releasing both of those sort of polarities, you come to this really grounded center of balance. And it's not about feeling either of those things. It's almost about feeling nothing
Mhm.
and being at peace with that.
Yeah. I'm wondering as we're talking, I'm wondering if it wouldn't be helpful to people to kind of go through this process and these
Mm,
phases, because I think people that are listening are going to be at different parts. And
mhm.
sometimes when you start to recognize that it's an entire season, right? And not always linear, but often there is some, um, something that you can begin to expect, at least what it might look like in your own individual experience, which gives some comfort to know that I'm on the right track. Like somebody else is describing something that I have this, like I have a little bit of it. So I'm wondering if that wouldn't be helpful to kind of go through that, kind of starting with the surrender that you mentioned and
Mm,
being in that dark cocoon, right? Because I
yeah.
think that's the beginning for people is you either find yourself in this space and you're fighting to get out of the darkness,
Yeah.
and or at some point you're surrendering within that darkness to whatever is within that cocoon and that experience.
Yeah. Um, I think for a lot of individuals, I've heard quite a few stories through my podcast and just through my interactions with people who've told me their stories. And 99% of the time, they'll come to recognize it as that dark night of the soul. And a lot of them will use that same familiar terminology to describe it. And for
Mhm.
many of them, their stories involve a very specific event that sent them into this space. And for me, it's odd because it wasn't necessarily a very specific event. Like I can't point to it and say, oh, it was when my father died, for example, which he did, but that didn't send me there. That was a different place. Or, it wasn't like I lost all of my possessions or something like that. Like there was no catalytic event that pushed me into it. It was just this, for me, this building, slow, like low burning process where finally nothing necessarily pushed me in, but I just found myself there. And so I think it's really nice to be able to talk about different angles of this experience. For some people, it will be a specific event. For others, it won't be at all. It may even appear out of seemingly nowhere and have them going, where did this come from? My
Mhm.
life was pretty normal, pretty manageable. And then all of a sudden, I'm just thrown into this cavernous darkness. What is going on here? So that was how it appeared for me. How about you?
Yeah, I do feel like sometimes there are these very clear precipitating events that happen, but more times than not, it has been pre-verbal. It's been something that happened, sometimes even something that seemed like a really positive event went inside me and it rattled around against other past experiences in a way that unbeknownst to me, it jarred me.
Mm,
But usually I've had something inside me that I've been wrestling with, or I've been tamping down, or I've been suppressing, and then this some event comes in that is so disturbing to me that it makes it to where the discomfort that I was feeling now becomes so painful
mm,
that I have to do something. It's almost like people describe kind of coming to the end of themselves. And it's
Mhm.
like some part of you realizes, I can't keep doing this.
Mhm.
This is painful. I'm willing to do something completely different, shake this up. And I think for me, that's where the surrender comes in because I'm like, I'm done. It's like there was this there was this time where I was on a paddle board and I was paddling into the wind literally for 35 minutes and I was moving nowhere.
Mhm.
Literally turning this way, turning that way, trying to tack in different directions to get past this wind spot. And finally, like I literally, other people were still trying to go. Finally, you know what I did? I just laid down my paddle, laid on the board, looked up at the sky and the clouds, went like this, and just floated.
Mm.
I just was like, I'm out. And that's when the ride really started to take a different direction. And we end up finding out that the place that we would have been paddling to 3 hours away was actually closed. And if we'd gotten all the way there, it would have been 6 hours to get back.
Oh, man.
So there's something like to that story for me that I was like, wow, the universe was like literally saying, stop it, stop it, stop it, stop it, go in a different direction. And finally, I was just like, peace out. I'm done. Send me in a new direction.
Have I not told you this story? Are you ready for the unfolding part of this? This
Yeah.
is absolutely blow your mind open. Okay. So I'm in meditation one night, probably a couple years back now. And in my mind, I see myself on what appears to be a small boat, a very small boat. And I'm paddling furiously against some kind of force that I cannot match up to. But I'm still paddling and I'm trying so hard. And why am I trying so hard and fighting this and nothing is happening? And I'm frustrated and I'm angry. And a voice says, drop the paddle. And I let go of the paddle. And all of a sudden there's sails and the sails are full of wind. And the voice
Mm,
goes, now hang on. And that's when the
mm,
ride started. And that's when my life took a 180 and said, okay, you've acknowledged that you're no longer in control here. But guess what? The one who's in control has your greatest and highest good and best interests and all of the joy and love and peace and fulfillment that you could ever have desired. But it's
mm.
not yours to take, it's yours to surrender into.
I love that.
So I can't believe you
Yeah.
actually had that experience. And I
Right.
get that in meditation, but it's the same. I mean, I have a paddle hung up on my wall here to
Mhm.
remind me
Mm.
to paddle.
Yes. Yes. And when you said that, it reminded me in my story, what I heard was let go.
Yeah.
Just let go. Right. And it's the same, like you got a message of just go with the flow. You're being sent in a different direction. Why do you insist on going in this other? I'm trying to save you 6 hours. I'm
Right.
trying to save you massive disappointment. Just trust me.
Yeah.
Right. And then it actually becomes fun. I mean, a
Oh
whole
my
comical
gosh.
story ensued from then. It was awesome. So, like, once you give in, it's like now what you were supposed to do that's meant for you
Mm.
happens and starts to unfold,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But I do think that that's a really important point. Like, so thinking about this, metaphor, there's something too, though, when you're in this cocoon, at some point, you've got to fight to get out.
Hmm.
And so I'm wondering if what we're describing is at some point you break through to the light. It
Mm.
does take effort though.
Yeah.
It almost does take, I'm wondering if it doesn't take a bit of a struggle to
Yeah.
get to that point because the surrender is important,
Hmm.
right?
I
I don't
literally
know.
picture it as like wrestling with God,
Mm,
like contending with God and going, no, this is what I want. No, this is how I want it. No, I want this. I actually like, it's like God is both saying, you don't have to do anything for this. It's for you. But at the same time, you have to want it. You have to be ready for it because, yeah, it's going to be a struggle sometimes. And you have to remember that you contended for this and that you wanted this. So it's
Mhm.
both. Of course, it's both because it's
Mhm.
always both. It's never just one. We have to have that balance. So it has to be both completely effortless and massively difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. When you were talking, it reminded me of last night. I was on a doing a workshop, and we were talking about it's like the struggle prepares us. The checklist of items that we're like, "Oh my gosh, I've gotta do this, and I've gotta do this, and I've gotta do this, and I've gotta do this." What if that resistance or those things that are part of the checklist is actually like a survivor's guide? It's like a checklist of things that you do that cultivates you to be the version of you that can actually accept the thing that you're going for. But
Mm.
it's like the butterfly that when you see the image of somebody clipping the butterfly open and the butterfly falls down and it dies because it had to struggle to actually be able to survive that journey. And so when we try to save somebody or we try to save ourselves and create these shortcuts, we can't receive the bounty because we're not ready to receive it yet. It's almost dangerous if we were to
Mm.
try to get something before we've cultivated the skills to receive whatever it is. So when we haven't gotten it yet, we're not ready to receive,
Yeah. Yeah, that
you
totally
know?
makes sense. Yeah. And here's the picture I got. Oh, I wrote resistance equals anti fragility. So, on the
Mm,
spectrum of breakable things, we've got fragile objects, which, like, don't do anything to them, don't rattle them, they'll break. And
right,
then we have strong, resilient objects. You can bend them quite a bit, but at some point they're still going to break. Resilience doesn't mean they won't break.
right.
It means they can bend back or they can snap back, but at some point there's no going back. But anti fragility is the opposite. Anti fragility says, no matter how much pressure you apply, I will only get stronger. There is no break, there's only
Right.
strength.
Mm,
So if we take that a step further and we go, okay, we work this self until we are anti fragile, then we're prepared for absolutely anything, no matter what way it may show up. Then we can
mhm.
take it all. Yeah.
Absolutely. I love that. And I picture in that anti-fragility, space of like how you're cultivating and becoming stronger, right? And becoming. I picture like at some point in the cocoon where like imagine like like you're in this cocoon and you don't even realize you're in a cocoon. And then all of a sudden when you're doing these things, you crack open the cocoon and you're like,
Oh.
what's that? That's like that light that we describe, these moments where we can't take it anymore and we're moving and we move in a way that it opens up just a little bit of light and we're like, what's that? Oh my gosh, there's a whole world out there,
Yeah.
right? But before we jump into this whole world, what I pictured was you were talking earlier about looking for the light out here. But I think sometimes for me, I like to get into the darkness and I like to get
Mm.
still because that's when I can most see the light in myself.
Yep.
It's like I'm prone to see the light no matter where I am, but I'm
Yes.
more likely to see the light in myself when I'm still and quiet and there's less flashy busyness around me and I can be like, "Ooh, what's that?"
Oh my gosh. So that's like bioluminescence. So with
Yes.
bioluminescence, you can't see it in the sunlight. It appears completely normal, like there's no
Oh my
light
gosh, I
at
love
all.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
until you get to the deepest, darkest depths of darkness, like at inky black, there is no outside light, then the bioluminescence is absolutely incredible. It's brilliant. But yeah,
Mm.
it has to emerge in the darkness. Man, this is a recurring theme for me this week of being empty, of sitting in the void, of stillness, of what really apparently is nothingness. Um, and someone just, I was somewhere, I picked
Mhm.
up this reminder that the universe is like what, 99.7% nothing, just void, just empty space. And I was like, who am I to try to fill myself up with stuff? That's not the way the universe works. It works when we're more empty and when we can sit in the emptiness with no expectation, with no attachment, and just be. That's how it works.
100% of the time, there's always something on the other side of everything. So if you're still and quiet and empty and there's nothingness, wouldn't it make sense that that's why that's a catalyst?
Yeah.
Because if something is still, it's like a, I just imagine this explosion, this catalyst
Mhm.
for things to be born
Yeah.
from the nothing, right?
Yeah. Yep. I mean, you just like harkened back to the beginning of everything.
Right. Well,
There was apparently nothingness. Yeah.
right.
Apparent
Yeah.
nothingness. No thing, nothing becoming. What does nothing become?
Right. This painting behind me is by Tara Baden, an Ohio artist, and it's entitled The Atmosphere in Which Miracles Can Occur. And I have that because I it reminds me of us as people. Like that there's this space inside of us that if we're 99% nothing, right? Even inside of us, there's just so much potential.
Mhm.
So when you said that, and you said it's the universe is 99.9% nothing, I'm like, ooh, wow.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, like there's so much space for so much to happen, right? It feels so full right now, but yet it's not.
Yeah.
There's so much beyond what we can see and feel. It's just
Mhm.
that to me gets really exciting.
I'm gonna totally nerd out on you, but I get so much more excited about the potential of a thing than the actual thing itself.
Mhm.
Every single time, the expectation of the thing is so much more wonderful. It's like if I could live
Mm.
in a realm of infinite possibility that never came into being, I would rather be in that realm than an infinite being.
Oh, interesting. I'm just the opposite.
Ah,
I don't know that this is typical for us, but I'm like
yeah.
I geek out and get excited about what's getting ready to happen, and I get like this, oh my gosh, and I can visualize and imagine something. But then when I get there, I'm like a child, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm like literally so smitten with moments. Like even every walk I take, sometimes I take 2 or 3 walks a day because I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? Like I can't wait to
But
see
that's the
the flowers
potential.
blooming
That's the
and
expectation. Like that's
oh
the
yeah,
excitement. Yeah, that's it.
yeah,
Exactly. You take
yeah,
it not because something has to happen, but because it could.
yes, that's true. I think I like both. But back to our original like metaphor with being in this cocoon and then having that little glimpse of light and
Yeah.
having that be kind of a catalyst to inspire just the fight in us, like the search, the
Yes.
curiosity. It doesn't it's
Mhm.
interesting because if I wonder what the emotional frequency of a
Mm.
caterpillar is as they're reaching, right? I wonder if some actually have anxiety or fear or
Mm.
desperation And if some are just curious and interested in what's happening and what's that out there, because presumably they don't know a whole other world is even out there.
Yeah. I mean, so I know that I've read somewhere that fear and excitement they do exactly the same thing inside our bodies.
Mhm.
There's no difference. You could not measure the output that a person is giving in one of those circumstances and know for certain whether it was from fear or excitement.
Interesting.
So I have to believe that what you just described is like yes and
Mhm.
because I don't know that I've ever experienced pure excitement without any twinge of fear or vice versa.
Right.
I can't think of a time where it was purely one or the other.
Right.
And you can literally transmute, like there was a study done where individuals were sent to go do this public speaking in front of a panel of people,
Mhm.
and some of the individuals were told to just do deep breathing and calm their nerves, just calm, just center themselves. The other individuals were told to tell themselves that they were excited and hype themselves up. I am so excited. This is so exciting. Oh my gosh, feel my heart. It's beating. I'm so excited. This is amazing. Oh my goodness. And like, woo, like really pump themselves up. The group that performed better was the group that was not told to calm down, but told to embrace the excitement of the situation
Mm.
because it's playing with the body and with the emotions and with the mind instead of trying to fight against it.
Well, I'm really excited to hear this because I do this dress rehearse for success.
Yeah, yes, that's
And
right.
we dive into the scene of what imagine this thing happening and you're receiving it and you're in a scenario and the people around you are cheering for you or the situation and they enter into it with you and it simulates in your body what you're going to experience and your expectancy.
Mhm.
And my thought is that generates the emotion that actually draws this experience to you because you've tasted it, you've felt it, you've experienced it, you've embodied it,
Yeah.
right? So I'm on the right track.
Yes. No surprise.
Er,
So
so
yeah,
good.
when you gave that image of the caterpillar and the cocoon and that little like first break of light and kind of the initial response being like, oh, what's that?
Mhm.
That feels like for me, the moment where I got a glimpse of like this universe and this world and like your subconscious and God and your conceptions of all of it is so much bigger than you could have ever possibly imagined. And it was like that first taste of your old paradigms are going to be broken away. You're going to shed them, just like the cocoon. It's going to be shed. But oh my gosh, is this tasty?
Yes. Yes. And and we feel that way, but my heart goes out to people and I know that there's been a version of me, we talk about these previous versions
Mhm.
of ourselves. I know that there's been a version of me, although I've always been a bit of a risk taker, a little. Um, but there's also been versions of me that have been completely scared to do the big things.
Yes. Mhm.
And so, I think normalizing that sometimes when you see that little pinprick of that hole and you don't know what's there, when you back up against the cocoon and you don't want to seek it out and see what it is, that's a normal reaction.
Mm.
But what happens if you don't go through it, you can't stay in that cocoon and live. There's
Yeah.
some part of you, I think about like parts times in my life where I haven't gone out of the cocoon and I haven't embraced the resistance and I haven't embraced the struggle. Little parts of me were dying
Yeah.
when I was staying in a space that I had wasn't for me anymore. I had outgrown. I was shifting and I needed to be a newbie in this new space versus a mature
Mhm.
person in this space that I didn't fit in anymore,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah, that was the story of my heart failure. I think that's
Yes.
really what pushed me into that event, was knowing that I had outgrown where I was. And this is really sort of specifically related to a job, but more so like life path. Like this life path that I was on wasn't for me. I knew it, but isn't that cocoon comfy? And
Mhm.
doesn't it just give you some sense of security? Like, oh, this big world, I don't know, man. Like a bird could come eat me as soon as I leave here. Like, that doesn't sound fun. I think I'd rather
Mhm.
just stay and cozy back up. And yeah, and quite a large part of me said, no, 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 we're going to die if you stay here. And this isn't your time. It's not your time to allow that to happen. So, yeah, that's a pretty big shaking when you're faced with that. But also, I was ready for it. I was ready for it and I wanted it to come. But I just apparently needed a really big push out.
Mhm. But, I love in your story though that you were asking and asking probably, right? Over and over for a way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so a way opened up. That
Yep.
was probably a way that knew that you would keep going because of how painful it's almost like you couldn't go back. You
Oh, no.
couldn't,
No. Mm-mm.
right? So the universe was like, okay, like you want to definitively keep going forward. Here's a situation that when you navigate this, you will have only one way, and that's forward.
Yeah. Yeah, for
Right?
sure. Yeah, it's like, okay, you're gonna walk across this little patch of earth here, and then the ground behind you is going to crumble and fall into that chasm, and you turn around and there is no way you are going back there. It is
Right.
gone.
Right.
And also I'm picturing like, don't haven't I read somewhere that mother birds flap their wings over their babies when they're learning how to fly to like dry them off and get them
Mm,
ready to spread their wings. I'm gonna have to look this one
cool.
up, but I know I've read this somewhere that like they push them out of the nest. Like, all right, here you go. And then they flap, 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 flap. Kind of show them, okay, this is how you fly. And also you need to dry those wings out and get them used to the feeling of, air movement. Yeah, that's kind of what it felt like. Like, okay, you're getting pushed now. You are out. That's it. But you're not alone. You're not doing this alone. Never at any point are you going to be allowed to have to go through what this will require of you alone.
Mhm. Yeah, I that's beautiful. I think it's a great um, segue to what happens when you start to fly, when you start to do something different that you have no idea what to do or what to expect. This is where, and I think both of us have sought this and are trying to create this,
Mm.
where people have communities where we can look to each other. Like I want to see, like I look to thought leaders. I read podcasts and books and I'm like, what are you doing? And what are
Yeah.
you doing? And when somebody talks about being at a stage or doing something that I'm not doing yet, I'm practicing before I have done this thing. I am watching and observing, but I think it's that watching others is almost a form of practice before you're actually practicing yourself. You're trying it on, like it's like you're mentally
Yep.
trying it on, like, ooh,
Mhm.
what's this going to be like? You know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I
Yeah.
do. I'm quite an avid reader. I may have a little problem with ordering books constantly.
I think it's only a testament to who you are.
Yeah.
I think you're buying books, and I say this because I'm going to justify my own book collection. I'm looking around going, this is ridiculous
Ooh,
how
yeah.
much square footage the books take in my place.
Yeah.
Um, but that's who we
Yep.
are people who want to, like, I want to get the most out of this life and this experience.
Yeah.
And so I'm like the butterfly who's looking out and flapping and going, what are you doing? what are you doing? Like, where are you going?
Yeah.
And I'm like, cool. Like, what's the possibility? Right. And then what gets me really excited is when we look in a direction and we're like, nobody's gone there yet. Oh my
Mhm.
gosh. Oh my gosh.
Yep.
Are you sure?
Mm. Yeah. I don't know if it's like adrenaline junkie in me or what it is, but it is so enticing and exciting when I find something that nobody has done. Like, oh, this trail is totally overgrown. I think that means I'm supposed to take it. Great idea, Bridget. Good
Yeah,
plan.
exactly. Exactly. There is something to that. But um I do think though that the those wide open spaces are also really exciting. For me, I like them because you can't kind of muck it up.
Mm, yeah.
There's no rules when you're doing something completely new. It's like if you do it wrong, like as a recovering perfectionist, there's
Mhm.
something to, oh, of course I'm going to do this wrong because nobody's done this before. Okay. It's almost like it gives me freedom, more freedom to be more playful and creative because there aren't comparisons
Yeah.
when you find yourself in a place that is uncharted territory, or at
Yeah.
least uncharted with the direct people around you, that you don't know anybody else who's done it, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah, I think also I seek that out not because I'm concerned about comparing myself to others, but because I am my biggest critic. So if there is nothing for me to measure by, guess I can't criticize myself then.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had that experience one time where I had, a performance appraisal. You know how we get those job reviews and we get those performance appraisal, and usually mine were very good. And but this one time I had a performance appraisal that was less than what I thought it should be. But then I had this experience where the my peers rated me on the same metric, my supervisor rated me, the people that I supervised rated me, and then I rated myself. So we went through this exercise, and the people that I supervised rated me the highest, and my peers rated me next highest, and then my supervisor the next, and then I was the worst. And I was like, wait, how could I possibly be upset with a person who rated me higher than myself? Like, what's wrong with this?
Mm.
You
Oh
know?
my gosh. Yeah.
It's like, but I see the potential in me, and believe that I can always stretch myself and grow, right? So which means that I rate myself, I'm never going to be at the top because I'm always like, I can be better.
Yeah.
Not in a self-deprecating way,
Yeah.
but in
No, but
a
it's
expansion and encouraging myself way.
yeah, that's solely your job to do. No one else can do that for you. No one else can
Mhm.
see your potential and say that you could do better. Only we can do that for ourselves.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we get out of these cocoons and we're in this spacious place, it like I felt it in my body, and I have these different reactions. Like at first I get excited and I see the expansive potential of where do I go and what do I do and what's this going to be like, and I have wings. Oh my gosh, I have wings, right? But I think about that, like tapping into that inner power, and when I go places that I've never gone before and I use the new tools and skills that I now have within me, where I can go is so expansive.
Mhm.
But I can see the tendency to want to stand or cling to a branch
Yeah.
and look around and watch everybody else first. I get both experiences, right?
Yeah. Mm. That's a great image of holding on to something. And so it's like, okay, so you escaped the cocoon. You did it. You made it out of there. But now the continuous challenge is going to be for you to unattach from everything.
Mhm.
And I just posted something about this recently that, okay, so we know that it would be toxic to attach to negative things or things that we judge as negative because there's really no such thing. But it's also dangerous to attach ourselves to apparently positive things
Mhm.
because in attaching to anything, we don't leave space for that next thing to come through. So there's no
Yeah.
progression, it's just stagnancy. So even if it is like this incredible blissful joy that we're experiencing, the challenge, and I think what life asks us to do is to hold it loosely and
Yes.
just allow
Yes.
it like a wave. Like, when you're at the beach that the next wave is going to hit the shore. I don't
Mm.
ever think, oh no, what if the waves stop? We know logically that they won't,
Right.
but it's very hard to know logically that the next thing is coming.
Mhm.
But it's coming as sure as that next wave is going to hit the shore.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. I think it reminds us of accepting our capabilities in the seasons we're in. Like I'm thinking about we don't know the situation of that butterfly that's clinging to the branch. What
Mhm.
if there's some slightly underdeveloped something or something more that they need to see? Or we
Mm.
don't know, like, we don't have to understand another's situation. But if we just believed that the one who's flitting around and going like just all over the place, and the one who's just flapping like this, and the one who's clinging on the other side of the branch, that they're all exactly where they're supposed to be and they're just being seen at different junctures of their journey.
Mhm.
And so there's no judgment to the rightness or wrongness of any of it.
Yep.
It's just we're seeing it from our unique perspective and lens at this particular time,
Yep.
right? So just like your example, if we don't label it right or wrong and we just accept the experience for what it is, truly like every time I'm flitting and I'm in this space of receiving joy and expansion, I know that it won't last like that all the time.
Mhm.
And so I like cherish it. This is
Yes.
why I look for the flower and I'm like, oh, look at this flower. Like I want to see the life wherever I'm at, but I also know that it's okay. Like, and that's a new thing for me to feel okay
Mhm.
that a season isn't as joyous or peaceful or filled with love, that
Mhm.
there's a different set of uncomfortable emotions because I believe it's preparing me for what's next.
Yeah.
It's like my relationship to that struggle and that hardship has shifted through the practice of moving forward despite the discomfort. And
Mhm.
it's like now I have this new neuro pathway of experience that says, oh no, this relationship's different. This is just preparing you for what next is next. And it's a level up,
Mhm.
right? It feels always feels like that to me.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh man, you reminded me of this story that I wanted to share with you. So we
Yeah.
get out of our van yesterday in our driveway and we have a little swing out in our Japanese maple in the front of our house. And we all love this swing. It doesn't go very much of anywhere, but it's just nice to be able to hang and relax and like hear the breeze and the leaves above your head and just kind of take it all in. My daughter's sitting on the swing and two of my little kiddos go over to her and they find this tiny, tiny baby bird that was dead on the ground.
Mm,
And it was really interesting to just witness them reacting to this because I'm thinking, and I'm like, I don't think that they've ever experienced death as closely as this. Like, they really love the animals in our yard. They really, really love to like feed the birds and feed the chipmunks and, have their little animal visitors. And like, yeah, they've seen like dead worms that we've tried to rescue from the driveway and things like that. But this hit differently and it tasted differently. And it was like, how are they going to respond to this? And it really wasn't the way that I expected it. Like,
Mm,
children have this incredible capacity to understand nature and her cycles. And like, they were sad, and then their sadness kind of gave way to curiosity. And then their curiosity allowed them to open up to all of these questions that weren't positive, weren't negative. They were just curious. They were just,
mhm,
what if this animal, eats these and it needed food for its babies and it
mm,
got scared and dropped this and that's why it's here and then it didn't get food and like there's just so many more possibilities beyond the initial experience and they were open to that. And I'm like, I want to be more like that. I want to see things. And I think perspective sometimes is almost a curse. Like we're cursed with this one way of seeing things and we can't get ourselves out of that. But they got beyond that.
mm.
They had this like God perspective that was just amazing, incredible to witness.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I was thinking about your situation, and I was like, my first response was, um, "Oh, good Lord, like, how could you possibly see things, be more curious?" But then I was like, "No, I see what you're saying," because number one, they got that curiosity from you. I could see where you're somebody who they've witnessed being very curious, and they know that it's okay to be very curious, right? And that's like a they're encouraged to be curious.
Yeah.
But I also think, to your point, that there's sometimes concepts that we're okay being curious about, that
Mhm.
we want to generalize that curiosity and be more open, because sometimes we have such a block in one
Yeah.
particular area, that if we expand our curiosity in that other area, because we know we can and we're capable and we
Mhm.
like that, then that opens up all kinds of potential solutions that we never saw before, that we were blocked to, that we just didn't know it was there,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
like being in the cocoon and you don't know that there's actually light if you keep struggling. And you're like, I'm just going to set up shop inside the cocoon and make a little house, you know?
Right.
But the
Yep.
whole time you had no idea that if you kept poking in this spot, that you would eventually have a whole new set of potential and possibilities,
Yeah.
because you were closed to that
Right.
this was malleable,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
And they
know?
like broke right through that, went right
Mm.
into the malleability of the situation. Yeah.
It's a huge lesson.
Mm.
It really is, that willingness. It's almost like they don't see that there are limitations.
Yeah. Right.
Of course you can poke through this membrane, this cocoon. Of
Yeah.
course.
Because I really believe that that's the way in which we are born into this thing, this experience is without
Mhm.
limitations.
Yeah.
We're the only limitations that we ever have are the ones that we're taught to believe are there because there truly are not limitations. We just accept and agree to them and then we incorporate them into our perception and our reality.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like what agreements have we made that we didn't have to agree to?
Yes. Yeah. As we look to wrap up
Mhm.
our time, I think that's a really great point to talk about. Is many times it looks like that other people have opportunities that we don't have,
Mm.
and maybe our circumstances have been different to where we've been shaped differently because of the experiences that we've grown into and what we've experienced so far. But the first real, I think, opportunity to liberate ourselves is the recognition that our continued reality is based upon our mindset and what we see as possibility. So it's like for me, a starting point in my own journey, and I know for some folks that I've been talking to, has been to tune into myself and recognizing that the way that I think, the way that I choose to feel about situations, and then all this, the spirit, the soul, all of this light inside of me,
Mm.
once I start to recognize all of this potential inside of me and my agency over this, my true agency over this, then that's where the liberation starts. Is almost like, it seems weird, but to contract into oneself is where the expansion, comes from.
Yep. Yeah.
Do you have any closing thoughts?
I think that was perfect.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for our discussion. I always love where we
Mm.
go. I'm gonna geek out on bioluminescence now. But yeah, thank you for our time.
Yeah. And thank you to our viewers. I'm Bridget Querns.
And I'm Beth Orr.
Yeah, so we just love to send out some gratitude. A special thanks to Asheville artist Melissa Moss for our cover art. Her name is spelled Melisssamoss. And you can learn more about Melissa and her work at melissamossart.com. And also, of course, a very deep thank you to Cloud Cult for our podcast music from their song, There's So Much Energy in Us. They have a live recorded version that is just incredible. Encourage everyone to go look it up and listen to it. You can learn more about Cloud Cult at cloudcult.com. And thank you for listening. And until next time, friends, peace, love, and light.